The SEALs swore no one could reach that sniper range until she proved them wrong. The first shot rang out just as the sun began to rise over the misty river valley. It was quiet, almost too quiet, when suddenly the crack of the rifle echoed through the trees. The SEAL team froze instantly. They had trained for this moment, but no one could pinpoint where the bullet had come from. "Where's the shooter?" someone whispered, barely audible over the soft rush of the river. Lieutenant Sarah Mills pressed her cheek against the cool metal of her rifle's stock, her eyes sharp behind the scope. The early morning fog clung to the riverbanks, twisting around gnarled tree roots and thick undergrowth. She scanned the landscape carefully, every muscle taut, every breath controlled. The river's surface was almost still, broken only by occasional ripples. Somewhere beneath that calm, a deadly sniper was waiting. The team had come into this valley under strict orders. Intelligence reported an insurgent arms cache hidden along the river, but the details were sketchy. Sarah's unit moved silently, boots sinking into the soft mud as they followed the winding river path. She remembered the stories from her training, how enemies could disappear into the landscape like ghosts, how every shadow could hide a threat. She shifted her position slowly, careful not to disturb the leaves or snap a twig. The SEALs around her communicated with whispers and hand signals, their nerves sharpened by the unknown sniper's first strike. The river valley was unfamiliar terrain, a maze of dense trees, reeds, and hidden pockets of water. The enemy had the advantage of knowing this place well. Sarah's thoughts flickered briefly to her father. A decorated general, he had taught her everything she knew about patience and precision. "A sniper is not just a shooter," he had told her once. "She's a ghost, waiting for the moment her enemy shows weakness." Those lessons now felt more real than ever. A slight movement caught her eye, something shifting among the reeds. Just beyond the riverbank, she zoomed in, holding her breath. A flash of camouflage, the glint of a rifle barrel. The sniper was there, watching, calculating. Sarah's heart raced, but her finger stayed steady on the trigger. She whispered into the comms, "I see movement near the east bank. Hold your positions." The team tightened their formation, ready for the firefight they knew was coming. The sniper's bullet had been a warning, a challenge, and Sarah was ready to respond. Suddenly, gunfire erupted from the river's edge, rapid, precise, and deadly. The team dove for cover behind thick trunks and rocks, their own rifles barking in reply. Bullets ricocheted off bark and splashed into the water, sending up sprays of mud and leaves. The river itself seemed to come alive with danger. Sarah found a narrow gap in the underbrush, lying prone with her rifle steady. Through the scope, she tracked the rival sniper's movements, quick, fluid, almost impossible to predict. The woman was skilled, firing from a position almost concealed by the river's murky currents. It was a sniper's nightmare, an enemy who could vanish as easily as she appeared. Time seemed to stretch, seconds turning into minutes as the two women played a deadly game of cat and mouse. Sarah recalled the countless hours spent perfecting her aim, controlling her breathing, learning to wait. Every shot was a message. Every movement could mean life or death. Her team covered her, returning fire and moving carefully to flank the enemy position. The river's edge became a battlefield of shadows and silence, punctuated by the sharp reports of gunfire. Sarah's mind was razor-focused. The sniper in the river was no ordinary soldier. This was a fight that demanded every ounce of skill and courage she had. As the sun climbed higher, the fog began to lift, revealing more of the treacherous terrain. The river's cold water flowed steadily, hiding roots and rocks that could trip up the unwary. Sarah felt the weight of the mission pressing down on her. It was more than just taking out an enemy. It was about protecting her team, completing their mission, and surviving to fight another day. Her thoughts returned to her family, her father, her younger sister waiting back home. They didn't see the battles, the long nights, the sacrifices. They only saw the uniform and medals. But Sarah knew the truth. War was messy, cruel, and often invisible. The sniper's next shot cracked sharply, passing just inches from Sarah's face. She didn't flinch. Instead, she adjusted her position, found a new angle, and fired. The bullet traced a perfect arc, striking the enemy's rifle and knocking it from her hands. But the sniper didn't retreat. She rose slowly from the river, water streaming down her fatigues, eyes locked on Sarah with fierce determination. The SEALs exchanged glances. The whispers stopped. This was no ordinary enemy. They were facing a sniper who could match them shot for shot, move through water and shadows, and vanish without a trace. Sarah steadied her breathing and prepared for the next move. The river was their battlefield, and the fight was far from over. Somewhere beneath the surface, the enemy waited, patient, lethal, and ready to strike again. The team knew this was a fight that would test everything they had trained for: skill, courage, and the will to survive in a world where the line between hunter and hunted blurred. Like the mist over the river, the first light of day barely pierced the thick fog hugging the river valley as the SEAL team pressed forward, every step measured and silent. The river, calm and deceptive, hid dangers beneath its surface. Sarah Mills, rifle steady, moved with the precision of a predator, eyes scanning every shadow. The question still hung in the air. Where was the shooter? The enemy sniper had vanished as suddenly as she appeared, leaving nothing but ripples in the water and an eerie silence. Sarah's mind raced back to the briefing. Intelligence was clear. This wasn't just any insurgent group. They had a sniper, trained and deadly, using the river as her shield and sword, a ghost haunting the water. The team had to find her before more shots rang out. Every minute counted. The SEALs split into pairs, moving in a tight formation along the muddy banks. The river twisted like a serpent, its dark waters swirling around submerged roots and fallen logs. Sarah stayed close to her partner, Mike, whose calm presence was a steadying force in the chaos. His eyes never left the tree line. Ahead, the soft crunch of leaves underfoot broke the stillness. Sarah froze, signaling the team to halt. She raised her rifle, scanning the opposite bank. A faint movement caught her eye, something sliding behind a cluster of reeds. The sniper was close, too close. The river's edge was a dangerous place, full of hidden traps and unpredictable terrain. Sarah knew the insurgent had an intimate knowledge of the land, a deadly advantage. She adjusted her scope, focusing on a glimmer of camouflage reflecting the weak sunlight. A sharp crack echoed suddenly, a shot fired too close. Mike dropped to the ground, a bullet whistling past his ear. The firefight had begun again. Sarah's heartbeat thundered in her ears as she fired back, her bullet finding the mark. But the sniper melted back into the shadows. The team moved quickly, flanking the enemy's suspected position. The river became a battleground where every step was a risk. The water splashed as a teammate stumbled into a hidden patch of reeds, and the enemy took the chance to fire again. Sarah's eyes narrowed. She spotted a movement upriver, a flicker of brown and green blending perfectly with the roots of an ancient willow tree. The sniper had chosen her perch well, almost invisible against the twisted bark. The SEALs whispered warnings through their comms, tension thick as the humid air. Sarah swallowed her fear, focusing on the target ahead. Her finger hovered lightly on the trigger. This was a test of nerves and skill, a duel played out over meters of mud and water. Her training kicked in. She controlled her breathing, slowing her pulse. Every breath measured, every muscle relaxed. The sniper's silhouette shifted just enough, too late. Sarah squeezed the trigger. The bullet cut through the air, striking the sniper's rifle, shattering the scope. A frustrated curse echoed from the enemy position. The rival sniper cursed her bad luck but did not retreat. Instead, she vanished beneath the river's surface, disappearing like a phantom beneath the ripples. The SEALs scrambled to reposition. Sarah's heart pounded as she scanned the riverbank, knowing the enemy could strike again at any moment. Mike leaned close, whispering, "She knows this terrain better than we do," Sarah nodded, thinking of the years she had spent training for moments like this, learning to read the environment, to anticipate the unseen. This sniper was no ordinary fighter. She was a mirror of Sarah herself, patient, precise, and ruthless. The river twisted again, darker now, shadows lengthening as the sun climbed higher. Suddenly, a splash upstream caught Sarah's attention. Her breath hitched. The sniper was moving through the water, stealthy and sure, like a predator stalking its prey. Sarah's team adjusted their positions, readying themselves for the inevitable confrontation. They moved slowly, deliberately, knowing that rushing would only play into the enemy's hands. Every step was careful, every glance wary. The sniper re-emerged from the water, soaked but steady, rifle raised. Sarah's eyes locked with hers. A young woman, fierce and unyielding, her expression hard but determined. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. Two women on opposite sides of a brutal war, each fighting for her own survival. The team held their fire, the tension palpable. Sarah's mind raced, wondering what had driven this enemy into the river's cold embrace. Was she a soldier, a survivor, or something more? Then the firefight erupted again, bullets flying, the river splashing violently around them. Sarah fired with calm precision, covering her team's advance. The enemy sniper answered shot for shot, each bullet a testament to skill and desperation. The battle stretched on, the river valley echoing with the sounds of war. Sarah's thoughts flickered between the fight and her own past, her father's lessons about courage and sacrifice, the long nights spent preparing for moments like this. As the firefight waned, Sarah spotted a figure moving along the far bank, a possible escape route for the enemy. She signaled the team to pursue, but the river was quick to swallow any pursuers. The sniper slipped away once again, a shadow melting into the trees. The SEALs regrouped, breathing hard, soaked with sweat and mud. Sarah's gaze lingered on the river, knowing the fight was far from over. The sniper had vanished beneath the surface, but her presence lingered, a reminder that in war, the greatest enemy is often the one you cannot see. Sarah lowered her rifle for a moment, the weight of the mission settling on her shoulders. This was more than a firefight. It was a battle of wills, endurance, and survival, and she was determined to see it through, no matter what the river claimed in the process. The sun was beginning to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows over the river valley. The firefight had slowed, but the tension didn't ease. Sarah Mills lay low behind a fallen log, her rifle cradled in steady hands. Across the riverbank, the elusive sniper had vanished again, but Sarah knew better than to believe the enemy was gone. Her breath came steady, each inhale measured as if she could will herself into invisibility. The duel between snipers was a deadly chess game, played with bullets instead of pawns. Sarah remembered her father's words from years ago. A sniper's true enemy isn't the other soldier. It's time itself. Every second spent waiting was a test of patience and willpower. She glanced down at her watch. The mission clock was ticking, but for snipers, time was both an ally and a trap. A mistake, a flicker of impatience, and death was certain. Her eyes scanned the riverbank once more. The water flowed silently, hiding the secrets beneath its dark surface. Somewhere out there, the enemy waited. The memories came unbidden. A cold winter morning during training, her father's voice cutting through the biting wind. Stay calm. Control your breath. The shot isn't just about aim, it's about the mind. She had taken those lessons to heart, pushing herself through endless hours of practice. It was what made her different, what made her survive. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught her eye, just a shadow shifting near the water's edge. Sarah's finger twitched on the trigger. She adjusted the scope, heart pounding. The sniper emerged slowly from the river, wet and determined, rifle poised. The two women locked eyes for a brief moment. There was something haunting about that gaze, a fierce resolve mirrored in both. Sarah saw not just an enemy, but a reflection of herself, disciplined, trained, and driven by something deeper than orders. The silence shattered with the crack of gunfire. Bullets zipped between the two, splashing into the river, ricocheting off trees. The sniper duel had escalated into a full-blown firefight. Sarah fired with precision, each shot a calculated message. She was here, and she wouldn't back down. The enemy sniper responded in kind, moving like a shadow, disappearing behind thick brush and reappearing with deadly intent. Sarah felt the rush of adrenaline, the mix of fear and focus that only battle could bring. Her teammates moved carefully, flanking the enemy position. But it was Sarah's fight, her moment to prove herself. As the firefight raged, Sarah's thoughts drifted to her team, her brothers and sisters in arms who trusted her with their lives. She thought of Mike, steady and reliable, covering her flank without question. The bond between them was silent but unbreakable, forged in the fires of training and battle. The river, once peaceful, was now a chaotic battlefield. Water churned with each exchanged volley, mud and debris flying through the air. Sarah ducked behind a tree, feeling the sting of a near miss. She wiped sweat from her brow, pushing down doubt. The sniper in the river was no novice. Every movement was calculated, every shot precise. Sarah knew she had to outthink her, not just outshoot her. The battle was as much mental as physical, a test of endurance, strategy, and nerve. Her mind raced through options, recalling training scenarios, adapting to the enemy's tactics. She noted the slight hesitation in the sniper's movements, a possible weakness. Sarah tightened her grip and prepared for the next shot. Suddenly, a flash of movement caught her attention upriver. Another enemy position? Sarah signaled to her team, heart pounding. They moved quickly but cautiously, closing in on what appeared to be a concealed sniper nest hidden in the twisted roots of an ancient willow. The team flanked left, moving silently through the undergrowth. Sarah stayed low, covering their advance. The river's murmur was the only sound besides their careful footsteps. As they neared the position, an explosion ripped through the air. A hidden IED detonated nearby. The blast threw Sarah to the ground, mud and debris raining down. She scrambled to her feet, heart hammering, adrenaline flooding her veins. Chaos erupted as the team regrouped, shaken but alive. Sarah's mind flashed to suspicion. Someone had betrayed them. The precise timing of the IED meant the enemy had inside knowledge. Trust fractured in an instant, the invisible enemy now among them. The firefight resumed, but Sarah's focus shifted. She knew survival wasn't just about bullets. It was about loyalty, honor, and uncovering the truth. The betrayal was a wound deeper than any gunshot, threatening to tear the team apart from within. With renewed resolve, Sarah led the push forward, determination burning in her eyes. The sniper in the river was still out there, but now the fight was bigger. It was about protecting each other, finding the traitor, and finishing the mission no matter the cost. As night began to fall, the river valley became a shadowy maze. Sarah felt the weight of command settle heavy on her shoulders. She remembered her father's final lesson. Courage isn't just facing the enemy, it's standing when everything tries to pull you down. With that thought, Sarah steadied her rifle, eyes scanning the darkening landscape. The battle was far from over. The sniper's duel had become a war of wills, and Sarah was ready to see it through. No matter what waited beneath the river's silent waters, the river twisted ahead, dark and deceptively calm beneath the fading light. Sarah Mills crouched low, heart pounding as she scanned the shadowy bank. The sniper had vanished once more, but Sarah could feel her presence like a whisper in the air, a silent threat lurking just beyond sight. The SEALs moved cautiously, every step measured, every breath held. Suddenly, a sharp crack shattered the silence. Bullets zipped past, kicking up mud and splintering bark. Sarah dropped behind a moss-covered boulder, rifle raised. Her team responded immediately, laying down suppressive fire. The sniper had revealed herself again, firing from a hidden position upriver. The riverbank's tangled roots and fallen trees provided perfect camouflage, a sniper's nest ingeniously concealed in nature's own fortress. "Contact at 12 o'clock, upriver," Sarah whispered into her comms, voice low but urgent. The SEALs shifted their formation, moving to flank the enemy while maintaining cover. Water lapped against their boots as they pressed forward, the river's chill seeping through their gear. The river wasn't just a battlefield. It was an enemy itself, slippery, unpredictable, and deadly. Sarah's eyes never left the thick brush where she'd spotted movement moments ago. The sniper's patience was almost inhuman, waiting, watching, striking only when the moment was perfect. Sarah admired the skill but couldn't afford respect now. This fight was about survival. The team split into two squads. Sarah led the left flank, navigating through knee-deep water and tangled roots. Each step was a gamble. One wrong move could mean a twisted ankle or worse. The jungle around them was alive with sounds, distant bird calls, the rustle of leaves, and the steady hum of the river. But beneath those sounds lurked something darker. the unseen enemy's breath. "Keep it tight," Sarah ordered softly, signaling the team to advance in formation. She felt eyes on her back, trusted glances exchanged. They were soldiers trained for moments like this, but the uncertainty gnawed at her. The sniper's skill had changed the rules of engagement. She wasn't just fighting an enemy soldier, she was facing a ghost who knew this terrain better than anyone. Suddenly, a rustle to her right caught her attention. Sarah pivoted, catching a glimpse of movement, a figure slipping behind a curtain of vines. Without hesitation, she fired. The bullet tore through the air and struck the enemy's shoulder. A sharp cry followed, then silence. "Target down!" Mike's voice crackled through her earpiece. Relief surged briefly, but Sarah knew better than to celebrate too soon. The sniper was likely baiting them, drawing them into a trap. Then came the explosion. A sudden blast rocked the riverbank, throwing Sarah off her feet. Mud, water, and debris rained down as she scrambled to regain her footing. The world spun dizzyingly before she steadied herself. The IED had been expertly planted, timed perfectly to disrupt their assault. Her team was scattered but alive, shaken but determined. The explosion had shattered the fragile calm, turning the valley into a war zone. Sarah's heart pounded fiercely, adrenaline sharpening every sense. Somewhere in the chaos, the sniper watched, waiting for the right moment to strike again. Amid the confusion, Sarah's thoughts flickered to betrayal. The precision of the IED's timing suggested inside information. Someone had to have tipped off the enemy. Trust, already fragile in combat, cracked dangerously. Sarah's eyes scanned her team, searching for signs, any indication of a traitor among them. "Stay alert," she commanded, voice low but firm. "We're not just hunting a sniper anymore. We're hunting a ghost in our midst." The team regrouped swiftly, weapons raised, eyes sharp. The river's murmur was now drowned out by distant gunfire and the low hum of helicopters circling overhead. The mission had shifted. It was no longer just about capturing the arms cache. It was about survival, loyalty, and uncovering the enemy's hidden hand. Sarah's mind raced as she led her squad deeper into the jungle. The sniper's nest was close. She could feel it in the air. The twisted roots of an ancient willow loomed ahead, its gnarled branches stretching like claws over the river's edge. It was the perfect hiding place, a fortress carved by nature itself. Her team moved silently, shadows among shadows. Sarah's breath was steady, nerves coiled tight like a spring. Every step was deliberate, every sound analyzed. The sniper had to be close, too close. Suddenly, a sharp crack echoed. A rifle shot fired too close. Sarah ducked instinctively as the bullet tore through the leaves overhead. The enemy was aware of their approach and ready to fight. Sarah returned fire, her bullet hitting a tree trunk with a loud crack. The battle intensified. The riverbank exploded with gunfire, water splashing violently as bullets ricocheted. Sarah's team pressed forward, relentless but cautious. The sniper was fighting for her life, using every advantage the terrain offered. In the midst of the chaos, Sarah caught a glimpse of the enemy's eyes, cold, determined, unyielding. For a fleeting second, the two women locked gazes across the battlefield. Sarah saw not just an adversary, but a warrior shaped by hardship and survival, much like herself. The sniper fired again, forcing Sarah and her team to scatter. The fight was brutal, a test of endurance and skill, but Sarah's resolve only hardened. She knew this wasn't just a battle of weapons. It was a war of wills. As the sun finally set, casting the valley into deep shadows, Sarah whispered into her comms. "Hold position. We're closing in." The river, once a quiet backdrop, had become a fierce battleground, and Sarah Mills was determined to see the fight through, no matter what darkness lay ahead. Night had fallen like a heavy curtain over the river valley, swallowing the last traces of daylight and cloaking the battlefield in shadows. Sarah Mills adjusted her night vision goggles, the eerie green glow revealing the tangled jungle in stark relief. The river whispered nearby, a constant cold reminder of the danger lurking in every ripple. The sniper was still out there, somewhere in the darkness, watching, waiting. Sarah's breathing was steady, her pulse controlled despite the adrenaline still thrumming through her veins. The firefight had died down, but the tension was far from over. The team was exhausted but vigilant, every soldier aware that the night was the sniper's greatest ally. In the dark, visibility was limited, and the enemy could strike with deadly precision from any shadow. "Status report," Sarah whispered into her comms. Mike's voice was quiet but steady. "All accounted for. No casualties. But morale's shaken. Everyone's on edge." Sarah nodded, even though no one could see her. She understood. The unpredictability of this enemy weighed heavily on them all. This wasn't just a fight for territory. It was a battle against an unseen adversary who knew the river and forest like the back of her hand. The team spread out in a loose perimeter, weapons ready, eyes sharp. Sarah took point, leading them along the riverbank. The soft crunch of leaves beneath boots was the only sound besides the gentle rush of the water. It was deceptively peaceful, like the calm before a storm. She scanned the opposite bank, every shadow and rustle scrutinized. The sniper's last shots had come from the far side, near the roots of a giant willow tree. The ancient tree stood like a sentinel over the river, its gnarled branches dipping into the water like fingers seeking prey. It was the perfect hideout. As they approached the tree, a sudden movement froze Sarah in place. A flash of motion near the water's edge, too quick to be anything but the enemy. Her heart leapt. The sniper was still here. "Enemy spotted," she hissed. The team responded instantly, weapons raised. Sarah moved with practiced stealth, keeping low behind thick underbrush. The sniper's silhouette appeared briefly, reflected in the moonlight. A woman, soaked from the river, rifle poised. Sarah's finger tightened on the trigger. This was the moment she'd trained for, the moment where every second counted. The sniper fired first, sharp, deadly. Sarah felt the bullet graze her shoulder. Pain flared, but she pushed it down, returning fire without hesitation. The duel was fierce, a deadly dance played out in the shadows. Bullets whipped through the night, striking trees and sending up sprays of mud and water. The two women moved with lethal grace, disappearing and reappearing like ghosts along the riverbank. Despite the pain, Sarah pressed on, adrenaline dulling the ache in her shoulder. She knew the sniper's tactics. They were similar, honed from the same brutal training and hardened by survival. This was more than a battle. It was a mirror held up to her own past. The sniper fired again, forcing Sarah to take cover behind a fallen tree. She caught her breath, wiping sweat and blood from her face. Her thoughts raced, not just with strategy, but with a growing sense of respect for this adversary. This was no ordinary enemy. This was someone who fought for a cause just as fiercely as Sarah fought for hers. Suddenly, a crackling sound came through the comms, a distress signal from Mike. "Sarah! We've got movement. Multiple hostiles approaching from the east." Sarah's mind snapped back to the present. The sniper was a threat, but now her team faced an even greater danger, an ambush. "Hold your positions! Prepare for contact!" she ordered. Gunfire erupted again, this time from the east. The riverbank became a chaotic battleground, the darkness punctuated by muzzle flashes and shouted commands. Sarah felt the sting of another bullet grazing her arm but forced herself to stay focused. Mike and two others engaged the attackers, their rifles blazing through the night. Sarah covered the left flank, eyes darting for any sign of the sniper. The enemy was relentless, pushing hard to break through their defenses. Amid the chaos, Sarah spotted the sniper moving to flank them, taking advantage of the distraction. She fired warning shots, forcing the sniper to halt and take cover. This was her chance. "Team, shift left! I'm moving on the sniper's position," Sarah commanded. She advanced carefully, every step calculated, heart pounding. The sniper's lair was close now, hidden beneath the thick roots of the willow. Sarah's vision tunneled as she focused, ignoring the pain and the noise around her. Then she saw it, a glint of metal beneath the roots, a rifle resting on the moss-covered ground. The sniper was cornered. Sarah raised her rifle, breath steady. But before she could fire, a sudden noise, a child's cry, pierced the night. Sarah froze, confusion flooding her senses. The sniper hesitated, lowering her weapon. A young girl appeared from behind the tree, eyes wide and scared. Sarah's heart twisted. This wasn't just a battlefield. It was a place where families were torn apart, where innocence was caught in the crossfire. The sniper lowered her rifle completely, signaling surrender. Sarah approached cautiously, rifle still raised but ready to listen. The enemy's fierce facade cracked, revealing exhaustion and desperation. "Why are you here?" Sarah asked quietly. The sniper's voice was hoarse but clear. "To protect my family, to survive." In that moment, Sarah understood. The war was more than strategy and gunfire. It was about people, women and children caught in a conflict they never chose. Sarah lowered her rifle, signaling her team to stand down. The fight was far from over, but for now, the sniper's shadow had lifted. As dawn approached, Sarah looked out over the river, the weight of the night settling on her shoulders. The mission had changed, and so had she. This was war, not just a battle against an enemy, but a fight for humanity in the darkest of places. The first light of dawn seeped through the dense canopy, casting a soft glow over the battered riverbank. Sarah Mills sat quietly beside the ancient willow tree, the sniper who had haunted their mission now restrained and watching with wary eyes. The girl, the child they'd heard crying last night, clung to the sniper's side, clutching her soaked and worn jacket. The fragile tension between enemies held the air like a taut wire, but for the first time in days, a silence settled, not of fear or gunfire, but one of uneasy truce. Sarah's shoulder throbbed with every heartbeat, a stubborn reminder of the bullet graze from last night. Yet the physical pain was nothing compared to the gnawing weight in her chest. War had shown her countless faces, some brutal, some broken. But this moment, this quiet exchange with a woman who mirrored her own determination, tested everything she thought she knew about the enemy. The sniper finally spoke, her voice low and rough. "They sent me to slow you down, to buy time for their supply convoy." Her eyes flicked to the river, where faint traces of movement betrayed the presence of enemy vehicles hidden among the trees. "But I never wanted to kill." "Not like this." Sarah studied her closely, the set of her jaw, the way her eyes held a flicker of regret. "Why did you join them?" she asked softly. The woman hesitated, then said, "I have a family, a daughter, like yours." She nodded toward the girl. "When your country is at war, choices aren't always between right and wrong. Sometimes it's just survival." Sarah felt the words settle deep inside her. She thought of her own father's stories, tales of soldiers caught between duty and family, of sacrifices that never made headlines. This enemy sniper was no faceless villain. She was a mother, a fighter, a woman shaped by circumstances beyond her control. The comms crackled to life, pulling Sarah back to the present. Mike's voice came urgent but steady. "Sarah, the convoy's moving. We've got 10 minutes before they're out of reach." The mission hadn't changed. The convoy had to be stopped. But the dynamics had. Sarah glanced at the sniper and the child, then at her own team, who waited anxiously behind the tree line. This operation was no longer just about weapons and ambushes. It was about lives. "Tell us where they're headed," Sarah said. The sniper nodded, pointing upriver toward a narrow mountain pass. "That's their escape route, but it's heavily guarded. You'll need backup." Sarah called in their position and situation. The response came swiftly. Reinforcements were en route, but they'd take time to arrive. They were on their own for now. With a deep breath, Sarah gathered her team. "We move fast. Hit the convoy before it disappears into the pass, and watch for traps." The jungle seemed to hold its breath as they advanced, moving through thick underbrush and over slippery roots. Sarah's mind raced with plans, ambush points, escape routes, possible enemy countermeasures. Every step brought them closer to the convoy and closer to danger. As they neared the river bend, the hum of engines grew louder. Camouflaged trucks rumbled softly through the trees, carrying weapons and supplies crucial to the enemy's war effort. The convoy was well armed, guarded by soldiers alert and ready. This wouldn't be an easy fight. Sarah signaled her team into position. They spread out along the riverbank, taking cover behind fallen logs and rocks, rifles raised and eyes sharp. The sniper, now a reluctant ally, knelt beside Sarah, her rifle steady despite the fatigue etched on her face. The seconds dragged like hours. Then, as the lead truck came into view, Sarah gave the order. The team unleashed a coordinated volley of gunfire, bullets ripping through the air with deadly precision. Chaos exploded among the convoy. Drivers ducked for cover, soldiers scrambled to return fire. The riverbank erupted into a storm of smoke, gunfire, and shouted commands. Sarah's team moved like shadows, striking swiftly, then slipping away to avoid counterattack. The convoy's defenses faltered, but the battle was far from over. Amid the noise, Sarah spotted movement near the rear of the convoy, a group of enemy reinforcements attempting to flank her team. She darted through the chaos, covering her teammates, firing with deadly accuracy. The sniper beside her moved with surprising coordination, covering flanks and calling out enemy positions. For all the violence, there was a strange unity in their teamwork, a fragile bond formed in the heat of survival. Sarah realized that the woman who had been her enemy was now the difference between life and death for her squad. The battle raged for what felt like hours, but slowly the convoy began to break apart. Trucks burned, soldiers surrendered or fled into the jungle. Sarah's team tightened their grip, pressing the advantage with relentless focus. Finally, the last truck exploded in a ball of fire, lighting the night sky. Silence fell over the river valley once more, broken only by the crackling of flames and distant bird calls. Sarah lowered her rifle, chest heaving, eyes scanning the battlefield. Her team was battered but alive. The sniper stood beside her, exhaustion evident in her stance, but pride shining in her eyes. "We did it," Sarah said quietly. The woman nodded. "For now." Sarah looked down at the child who had fallen asleep against the sniper's leg. The innocence of that small figure was a stark contrast to the violence that surrounded them. In that moment, Sarah understood that war was never just about missions or medals. It was about people, women and children caught in its unforgiving grip, fighting for survival in ways the world rarely saw. As the first stars appeared overhead, Sarah felt a profound mix of relief and resolve. The mission was far from over, but today they had won a battle not just against an enemy, but against the darkness that war brought with it, and in the quiet after the storm, a fragile hope flickered that even in the harshest battles, humanity could endure. The jungle was alive with sounds once more, but the tension had shifted. Sarah Mills sat near the dying embers of their small campfire, the sniper's rifle resting beside her, now silent and untouched. The woman who had once been her enemy was no longer a threat but a complex figure, a mother, a soldier, a survivor. The girl slept peacefully nearby, her chest rising and falling in the quiet night. For a moment the war seemed distant, a shadow just beyond the flickering light. Sarah glanced at the woman, Lena, as she had finally revealed her name. The bond between them was fragile, built on moments of fierce combat and reluctant trust. Lena's eyes were heavy with exhaustion, but there was a spark in them, something that spoke of unyielding spirit. "Tomorrow, we need to move," Sarah said softly. "Reinforcements will be here soon, but until then we can't stay exposed." Lena nodded, her face stoic. "I'll help you navigate the pass. I know the terrain better than anyone." The admission surprised Sarah. Despite being on opposing sides, they were united now by something deeper, a shared understanding of the cost of war. Sarah's thoughts drifted back to her own past, to the stories her father had told her. Tales of battles fought in shadow, where enemies became allies, and where the true fight was often within. She thought of her childhood, of the long hours spent watching her father prepare for missions, and of the unspoken sacrifices that marked their family's history. "Why did you fight so hard to protect that convoy?" Sarah asked, breaking the silence. Lena's gaze hardened. "Because if they succeed, more families like mine will be torn apart. The weapons they carry fuel the war, guns, explosives, drugs. They destroy everything." Sarah understood better than anyone the vicious cycle of conflict. "And what happens to your family?" Lena's eyes softened as she looked at her daughter. "They're all I have left. I'll do whatever it takes to keep them safe." The fire crackled between them, a fragile bridge in a world fractured by violence. Morning came with a heavy mist hanging over the valley. The squad prepared to move out. the urgency of their mission renewed. Sarah led the way, flanked by her team and Lena, whose knowledge of the pass was invaluable. The air was thick with anticipation, and the unspoken hope that this journey might lead them closer to peace. The mountain pass was treacherous, narrow paths clinging to cliffs, loose rocks threatening every step. Sarah's boots crunched on gravel, her senses sharp despite exhaustion. The sun struggled to break through the fog, casting eerie shadows that danced along the rocky walls. Suddenly, the sharp crack of a rifle shot shattered the quiet. Sarah dove behind a boulder as a bullet ricocheted off the rock beside her. "Ambush!" she shouted. Enemy fighters had been lying in wait, hidden among the crags and trees. The team scrambled for cover, returning fire with fierce determination. The sniper, Lena, disappeared into the foliage, moving like a ghost to take out the attackers one by one. The firefight was brutal, echoing off the canyon walls. Sarah felt the sting of a graze to her leg but pushed the pain aside. The team fought as one, every member relying on skill and trust forged in the heat of battle. Amid the chaos, Lena's voice came through the comms. Calm, precise, lethal. 3 o'clock! Sniper's nest spotted? Sarah swung her rifle toward the direction Lena indicated, spotting a figure atop a rocky outcrop. The enemy sniper was perched high, taking advantage of the terrain. Sarah fired, but the shot missed narrowly. "We need to neutralize that sniper," Sarah ordered. "Lena, cover me." Lena nodded, her movements swift as she climbed the rocky slope with the agility of someone born to the wild. Sarah followed, using the cover of the boulders to close the distance. The climb was grueling, every step a battle against fatigue and gravity. But Sarah's focus never wavered. This sniper was a key to breaking the enemy's hold on the pass. At the summit, Lena engaged the sniper in a fierce exchange of gunfire. The two women faced off, each a mirror of the other, fighters hardened by conflict, driven by duty and love. The duel was intense but brief. Lena's precision won out, and the enemy sniper fell, silence reclaiming the canyon. Sarah reached the summit moments later, breathing hard but victorious. The path was clear, but the cost was heavy. The team regrouped, tending to wounds and preparing to press on. The rest of the pass was a test of endurance, but Lena's guidance helped them navigate the treacherous terrain. As they descended, the sound of helicopters filled the air, reinforcements arriving at last. Relief swept through the squad. The mission was nearing its critical phase. The convoy had been stopped, but the enemy's grip on the region remained strong. This was a battle in a larger war, one that would demand more courage and sacrifice. Sarah looked at Lena, the woman who had been her enemy, her ally, and now something in between. "What happens now?" Sarah asked. Lena looked toward the horizon where the sun was breaking free from the morning mist. "Now we fight to end this, so no more children have to grow up in war." Sarah nodded, a quiet determination settling in her bones. The road ahead was long and uncertain, but for the first time, hope flickered like a beacon in the darkness. Together, they descended into the valley below, soldiers bound not just by duty, but by the unbreakable bonds forged in the crucible of war. The helicopter blades chopped the thick air as the sun climbed higher, burning away the morning mist and casting golden light over the battered valley below. Sarah Mills sat quietly in the back of the bird, her shoulder still aching, but her mind sharper than ever. The mission had taken its toll, but the weight of what they had accomplished pressed on her chest, heavy but not unbearable. Lena sat opposite her, the young girl asleep on her lap. The sniper's expression was unreadable, a mix of exhaustion, relief, and something deeper, an unspoken hope for a future beyond the endless conflict. For Sarah, the journey had changed everything she thought she knew about enemies and allies, sacrifice and survival. The helicopter banked toward the forward operating base, where a small group of officers waited. The tension in the air was palpable. This mission wasn't just another skirmish. It was a pivotal moment that could reshape the fragile balance of power in the region. As the rotor slowed, Sarah's team disembarked, weapons still at the ready. The base was a stark contrast to the jungle, Harsh lines of concrete, the buzz of radios, the constant hum of activity. Yet beneath the surface, the weight of war was just as heavy. The commanding officer, Colonel Ramirez, approached with a grave expression. "You did well out there, Mills. The intel you gathered on the convoy and the enemy positions is invaluable." Sarah nodded, glancing toward Lena, who stood quietly beside her. Ramirez's gaze lingered on the sniper, curiosity flickering behind his military stoicism. "We have reports of increasing enemy movements along the river and the mountain pass," Ramirez continued. "Your team's actions have slowed them, but this conflict isn't over." "Not by a long shot." Sarah met his eyes, feeling the familiar burden of responsibility settle once more. "What's the next step, sir?" Ramirez paused before replying. "We need to build on your success. Secure the region, cut off supply lines permanently, and gain the trust of the locals. But it won't be easy." The words hit hard. This mission had been a battle, yes, but the war stretched far beyond. Sarah knew that. She also knew that victory wasn't just about firepower. It was about hearts, minds, and the quiet battles waged behind the lines. Later, in the briefing tent, Sarah gathered her team. Faces marked by fatigue but burning with determination, they listened as she laid out the plan. "We're not just fighting soldiers out there," she said. "We're fighting for families, for children who don't want this war. That means we need to be smart, connect with the people, gather intelligence, and strike where it hurts." Lena, now accepted as part of the team, spoke up quietly. "There are villages along the river that suffer because of the fighting. If we can protect them, gain their trust, it will weaken the enemy's hold." Sarah agreed. "Exactly. This is more than a mission. It's a chance to make a real difference." The days that followed were a blur of patrols, negotiations, and tense encounters. Sarah watched as Lena moved with surprising ease among the locals, her knowledge and compassion bridging gaps that weapons never could. The girl, now awake and curious, traveled with them, a living reminder of what was at stake. One afternoon, as they sat around a small fire outside a village, Sarah found herself sharing stories with the women gathered there. Tales of home, of hopes for peace, of losses and resilience. The faces around her were weathered but strong, marked by war but unbroken. A local elder, her eyes bright with wisdom, spoke softly. "We've lived through too much pain. Your fight is our fight now. But remember, true peace comes not from battles won, but from understanding." Sarah nodded, feeling the truth in those words. The war was not just a clash of armies. It was a struggle for humanity itself. Months passed. The mission evolved. The convoy routes were disrupted permanently, supply chains severed. The enemy's grip weakened, and with it, the cycle of violence showed signs of slowing. Sarah stood on a hill overlooking the river one evening, Lena beside her, the girl playing nearby. The sky blazed with the colors of sunset, a reminder that even after the darkest battles, light returns. "Do you think this will end?" Lena asked quietly. Sarah smiled, a tired but genuine smile. "War doesn't end easily, but every step toward peace is worth it. We fight not just for today, but for tomorrow." Lena reached out, taking Sarah's hand. "Thank you for seeing me, for fighting alongside me." Sarah squeezed her hand gently. "We're more alike than we ever imagined. Maybe that's how peace begins." As night fell, Sarah looked up at the stars, feeling the heavy weight of the past lift slightly. The road ahead was uncertain, filled with challenges and sacrifices yet to come. But for the first time in a long time, she believed in something beyond the fighting: hope, humanity, and the possibility of a future where children could sleep without fear. In the quiet of that moment, the river flowed steadily below, a timeless witness to the courage, the loss, and the relentless spirit of those who dared to fight for peace. Sarah knew this story was far from over, but it was theirs now, a story of resilience, of unexpected alliances, and of the unbreakable bond between women forged in the crucible of war. And as the night deepened, she whispered a promise to the girl, to Lena, and to herself that no matter the cost, She would never stop fighting for a world where silence replaces gunfire and where the river runs free once more.